What's up, Santi here. Today we'll be talking about common mistakes that stop you from enjoying your books, making the most out of them, and I'm gonna be talking a lot about non-fiction books in this video. I definitely see a lot of value in fiction, but I think a lot of these rules that I'm talking about here don't really all apply to fiction, so keep in mind, I'm usually talking about philosophy, self-improvement, business books, any book that helps you learn a skill, change your mindset, change your behavior, that kind of stuff, right? So first mistake is following into a comparison trap. This one is super easy to fall into because you see all these YouTubers, you see all these famous people saying like, okay, hey, I read one book a week, this is 52 books a year, and you should do the same, otherwise you're gonna fall back in life. And that's just not true, you know, every person works different. What works for someone else probably doesn't work for you. If you try to overcommit yourself to a crazy goal like a book a week, you might not be able to achieve it, you might even be frustrated with the whole experience of reading, and you might actually give up on reading altogether. So follow your own pace. Actually, if you're someone that, like me, like 5 years ago, I never opened a book, I didn't touch a book. Now I consider myself someone that reads a certain amount that I'm proud of, that I find useful in my life. But back in the day, I never opened a book. It was terrible, and I knew I should read, but I never feel motivated to do it. So like one of the tricks that I think would be really useful if you're someone that's still stuck, not being able to develop the habit, is start really small. Start ridiculously small, to the extent that the goal is not to read 1 hour a day, right? The goal is actually to do 5 minutes a day, or even 1 minute. Maybe just the act of opening the book, whether that's digital or physical, just open it once a day, close it, that's it, and then little by little you progress it. Of course, that's a ridiculous extent, but really make it ridiculously small to a point that you cannot not do it, that you're forced to do it, because why wouldn't you? It's so easy that why wouldn't you? So read 1 page a day, you're gonna start getting into the pattern, getting into the rhythm, and that way you're gonna be able to actually build a habit if that's something you're struggling with. So don't compare yourself to others, only compare yourself to your past self. If you're doing better than you were doing yesterday or a year ago, you're progressing, and that's enough. All right, let's get into mistake number 2. This one is reading for obligation. Similarly to the previous mistake, this one is definitely based on outside expectations, thinking that you should do things a certain way. The cool thing about not being in school anymore is that you're not forced to do things the way that your teacher told you you should do things, right? A lot of these mistakes are honestly based on what is expected of us, but when you realize that you can do whatever you want, there's no should, there's no one way to do things. When you become more self-aware and realize that what works for you, then you start doing things in a way that is a lot more pleasing, a lot more sustainable as a habit over the long run, and way more beneficial in your life. So don't read for obligation. Instead, follow your curiosity, follow what interests you, do things the way that work for you, and a lot of the next mistakes are going to be related to this idea. But don't read for obligation. You're not in school anymore. This is a great opportunity to do things your way. And even if you're in school, you can still take this part of like the books that you read for yourself and don't read it the way that you would in school. Mistake number 3 is forcing yourself to read only 1 book at a time. I personally sometimes read 3 books at a time, even more sometimes. I put some books on standby, I give up on them, maybe I go back to them later, maybe I don't. I rotate around the books that I want to read, and I don't feel guilt like I used to back in the day. And I feel there's a lot of a book is a sacred thing. If you don't finish the whole thing, you are failing yourself, you're failing your mother, you're failing your neighbor, you're failing your ancestors. How dare you give up on a book? How dare you not finish your book? A lot of these are outside expectations that are not helping us. They're obviously hindering us. So if you feel like you're someone that likes reading several books at the same time, maybe one fiction book together with a non-fiction book, maybe another philosophy book on the side, and you just want to rotate, this can actually help keep your enthusiasm for reading and for books in general alive. Because I've definitely been in the past in places where I say, okay, I need to finish this book, and if I don't finish it, I cannot move to another book, and all of a sudden I realize that the book is bored. I don't feel motivated to read anymore. I give up not just on reading that book, but I give up on reading as a habit as a whole. So don't let this happen to you. If you get interested by another book and you want to read it simultaneously, feel free to do that. There's no one telling you what you should and shouldn't do. It's your life. Take hold of it. Do what you want. And if what you want is read several books at the same time, do whatever you want. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Mistake number 4 is not developing a note-taking system, a way to save the information of the book so that you can resurface it later over time, so that you can turn it into whether that's content that you want to write. If you ever have the goal of writing a book yourself, these notes are going to help you do that. If you want to internalize even better some information that you think are going to be valuable in your personal or professional life, notes are going to help you do that. So there's an important disclaimer to this. I personally enjoy building these systems and using different applications, and that's something I do in my other videos if you're interested in that. But not everyone works the same. You might not enjoy this process. Getting obsessive about the perfect way to do this is a lifelong journey. It never ends. You always need to keep doing improvements to your note-taking system. It can get out of hand. It can get frustrating. It's not for everyone. So if you do enjoy it and you think it's worth it in your life, implement this. However, see what extent you want to take this to. Of course, there's a classic joke of like, if you highlight the whole book, it's like doing nothing, and you can definitely fall into the trap. PKM or note-taking is something that's actually gonna take time to develop, and it might be worth it for you. It might be something that you just want to simplify. The extent at which you should implement this is completely up to you. If you're someone that just likes taking notes on the margins of books, that might be enough. If you like making flashcards of everything you learn, that might be something that you enjoy. There's tons of digital tools to help you, but this really requires your self-awareness to know if this is the right fit for you and how much you can benefit from implementing something like this. So if you're interested in discovering applications and tools and systems like that, definitely check out some of my other videos in my channel. But with that, let's move on to the next mistake. Okay, mistake number 5 is not revisiting books. There's so much value in rereading and revisiting books that you know have been impactful in your life, or you see a lot of potential for change in your life. Just like this quote says, "It does not matter how many books you have, but how good the books are which you have." Seneca is one of my favorite philosophers, and he really talks about not accumulating quantity of books, but rather quality, right? He has other quotes such as, "Too many books disperse the thoughts," or "The abundance of books is a distraction." So what do I recommend as an efficient way to revisit books? Oh look, how convenient, is today's sponsor. But in all seriousness, Shortform is incredible for revisiting books because they provide the best guides and summaries of all types of books, whether that's self-development, philosophy, business. You'll find it there. It's incredible. So this is my favorite method to revisit books that I might have forgotten about. For instance, Ego is the Enemy. This book I've read 3 times and I have extensive notes on it. However, when I read the Shortform guides, I still found such valuable stuff that I wouldn't have found otherwise. For instance, let me show you an example. Outside of this book, I've been doing a lot of research on goal setting and which parts of it don't work, and I didn't know this book made a mention of that. So if I show you right here, studies show that when people announce goals, they develop premature sense of having accomplished them, and they're less likely to actually follow through and achieve those goals. And I didn't know this book made a mention of this. There's even a link that Shortform provides, and now this helps me go down the rabbit hole of research and improving myself and developing more of the knowledge that I'm interested in. So Shortform keeps adding new books every week, and in case you don't find the specific book you're looking for, they do take your vote into consideration when deciding which books to release next, which is awesome. So if you do want to give it a try, you can do a 5-day trial with my link shortform.com/Santi, which should be here and in the description, and that also will give you a 20% discount on your annual subscriptions. So I think you love Shortform. Honestly, one of the best techniques to revisit books. Do give it a try. Again, you have the 5-day trial, so do let me know if you go for it and let me know your opinions on it. Cool, now moving on to mistake number 6, not talking about what you read. Now, you can definitely take this to an extent, and you can go to any social gathering and start talking about like, oh, did you know about the origin of kites? And you know, you can definitely become pretentious if all you talk about is the things you read about. I've definitely been guilty of this. But there's the other extreme where you probably don't talk to anyone about anything you read ever, because maybe from a fear of being seen as pretentious, or I don't know, maybe you're shy and you're a bit scared to share these ideas. Maybe you don't want to be judged about your huge book collection on the anatomy of snails, if that's one interest of yours. Do try to talk about the things that you read, because this is actually gonna solidify what you read in your mind in a much more efficient way than anything else. Because we're social animals, we're social creatures, it's in our primitive brains the idea that socializing is one of the most important things we can do for survival. Therefore, our brain associates the things that we talk about to other people as something that is important. So you can use this as a hack to internalize the information of books by sharing it with others, because your brain says like, oh, this is a social situation, I'm sharing this with someone else, it must be important. And in a weird way, it sticks in your mind a bit better, and it just helps you explain. It helps you put things in words that you wouldn't have done otherwise if you didn't express it verbally. That helps you understand information a lot better. We've all heard the quote, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Whether that's properly attributed to Albert Einstein or not, we'll never know. That's a mystery. Everyone just attributes every quote to Einstein. But the idea is true. Externalizing what you learn helps you understand it better yourself. Now let's move on to the 7th and final mistake, not implementing what you learn. At the end of the day, when it comes especially to non-fiction books, philosophy, self-development, the purpose of these books is to make some significant change in your life, for the better ideally, right? So if you only read to accumulate knowledge but you never actually implement any of this advice, you don't try new ways to live or think about a certain concept, then you might be wasting a lot of this time that you're spending on reading. So actually, when you learn something, whether write it down or immediately start trying it out in your life, see how that impacts your life. Books can be dangerous, the best ones should be labeled, this could change your life. And that is so true. One of the books that started my whole journey of philosophy and learning about myself, this book was The Antidote, Happiness for People Who Can't Stand Positive Thinking by Oliver Burkeman. It's a great book that got me started. I discovered Stoicism through that book, and that sent me on a 2-year journey of only reading philosophy books. I implemented as much as I could from those books, and that made me to the person that I am today and that I hopefully will keep developing for the rest of my life. So do the best you can to use the advice that you get from books, to implement it, to change your life, to make yourself a better person, right? There you have it. So let's recap. First mistake is falling into comparison traps. Second mistake, reading for obligation. You're not in school anymore, you can do whatever you want. Mistake 3, forcing yourself to read only one book at a time, especially if I can let go of this. Especially if you find yourself getting tired by just one book, you can always rotate it, and that is going to help you keep your passion and interest for reading alive a lot easier than if you always force yourself to read just one book at a time. Mistake number 4, not developing a note-taking system. This can be anything from something super easy to something really advanced. It really depends on what you enjoy and what helps you. Mistake number 5, not revisiting books. Mistake number 6, not talking about what you read with others, which really helps you understand this information better. And mistake number 7, not implementing what you learn. This one is probably the most important. If you have one takeaway, use that one. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye. Yeah.